Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski, speaking to you live from my home in the southern Hebron Hills, Susia. It's a beautiful day here. It's February 24th, but you wouldn't know it because the sun is shining. We see the grass. And, a week ago we had this tremendous snowfall, and there's almost no evidence of it. It's amazing. I mean, yes, trees fell down, and yes, some poles came out of the ground, a couple electric poles, and the tops of the playgrounds got snow on them. So some of those, we call them shades. The shades fell, some of them collapsed. But, I mean, the snow's gone. It's dry. It's sunny. There's green grass out. It's amazing. It's crazy. But that's Israel, You get everything here. Everything hits you like here. Very, very extreme country. And now we are about to go into Purim, which is a high time of the year. It's everywhere. It's so exciting. And even that we have these corona rules and this madness going on, I've got to say it is a bit mad. Purim is awesome. Purim is amazing. My daughter is in Kita Chet, so that's like the 8th grade. So she's the oldest group in the school, and they got to be in charge of the Purim Shuk, and they did a whole Disney World theme. And she showed me it, and you could hear the loudspeaker, and they had cotton candy, and they had, the big drawings and the big live dolls of Snow White and the different movies. They have jumping things for the kids. It's very exciting here. It's really exciting. Our Mishloach Manot, we're going to do them in the morning. I'm getting up at 6 a.m. to get working. I make pizza for all my friends and juice, and my children have done their own Mishloach Manot. That is the greatest thing about being observant, by the way. Purim, when I grew up, it was all about dressing up like Queen Esther and eating hamantashen. Oznei Aman, they call them here. But here, and when I became observant, the Chag was all about giving this little package of food. We call it Mishloach Manot, a little parcel of food. And so, that's what you do. It's giving. And we give, the adults to each other, families give, and children give. It's all about giving. And it's a beautiful thing to see that this is what they get excited about. And should we all always be excited about giving? It's a very important part of life. Stick around. We have a great show today. I'm so excited. Our first guest is a real New Yorker. You're going to hear a real New Yorker here. Stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. Joining us today is this is a very interesting person. My son goes to a music yeshiva. Some of you may remember me speaking about it sometimes. Both my sons go there. And my 15-year-old son, my younger boy, has a friend, and this is his father. His friend has an American father, I found out. So I said, let me bring him on the show. His name is Lenny Goldberg. He lives in Kfar Tapuach. He made aliyah to Israel in 1985. He was about 27 years old. And he is originally from New York. You'll hear it in his accent. He has 8 children from the ages of 15 to 30. And here he is. Lenny, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I'd like you to share with our listeners your aliyah story. You've been here a long, long time, and you came at a young age. Were you married when you came here?
No, I came single. I knew if I stayed too long and got married, it would be harder to make aliyah. The more rooted you are, the harder it is to make the move.
Okay, so speak up a little if you can, and take me back to the 1980s. What you were doing in your life at that time?
Well, I had my MBA in marketing, I was working. I started working with J. Walter Thompson. I was in my last year of my MBA at Albany. And, I was going the regular path that most people went on without thinking. You go to school, you go to college. Since the college isn't working, then you go to a...
Okay, Lenny, we're losing you. We're losing you. Try to,
I don't know, maybe I'll try to get to a place where there's better reception.
Okay. But I know you're from New York. I hear it in your accent. You're from New York. You grew up not religious, right? Not religious. Israel, were you involved in Israel at all?
Well, I had a Zionist parents. They weren't religious, but they cared about Israel. I had family in Israel that, from Israelis that from Europe. So we knew we had Israeli mishpacha in Israel, so that kind of gave a connection to Israel. But to live in Israel was far from my mind.
Okay, so tell me what happened to make that happen.
Yeah, well, I was visiting. It's cold in Albany, so we drove to Miami, where my friend goes to Miami University. He was going to law school, and we were all good friends. And we used to gamble a lot. That was my vice, And Florida, Miami has horses, dogs, highlight, and flats, and harness racing. So it's like for us, it was a great thing. So we heard that Rabbi Kahane was going to speak on that campus at about 11 o'clock, and post time at Gulfstream was 1 o'clock. So we said, maybe we should go to this lecture, only because we were interested. We didn't know much about Rabbi Kahane, but we saw a lot of tumult about this lecture outside, demonstrations and so forth. So we decided to check it out. And that was my big change.
Wait. I want to see what you saw, because I wasn't there. You say tumult. You say you saw tumult. Okay. What do you mean?
Well, yeah, you have the leftists on campus, a lot of Arabs on campus too, even in those days. So something was controversial going on. Nothing violent or anything, but you see, the Hillel Foundation, they did want him there, we knew, and he was coming sponsored through another channel, and this whole thing together, only because, post time at Gulfstream Racetrack was 1 o'clock, we decided to go. What the heck, we're there anyway on campus.
Okay, and, so you saw a lot of action. That's what you saw. Okay.
Anyway, so he walks in with these bodyguards. Rabbi Kahane, there's two big guys around him, and this is the first thing like we heard him say. So he's sitting there, and the Hillel rabbi on the campus didn't like Rabbi Kahane, I guess, too much. So he started to talk that he would say, "I'm not comfortable seeing around you these two gorillas around you, because this is a college campus and there's no violence, and I'm not comfortable." He kept saying, "I'm not comfortable with that." So Rabbi Kahane said to him, "Well, I have threats in my life, so I'm comfortable. And the way he said it's like a comedian who just cracked us up. And we were laughing. I mean, the whole thing was very entertaining. The way the rabbi was able to handle the questions from the leftists and even the very educated and academic people, he just kind of destroyed them intellectually. And all that, there was a message all the time of learn about Judaism, nothing about Judaism. You guys, go to college your whole life, you learned a million things, never touched anything to do with your Jewish heritage. And I couldn't deny that was true. And also, of course, go to Israel. I mean, that was his message, learn Torah and go to Israel. And of course, I'm not going to run to Israel right away. It took time, but that was like the first contact with something that made me change my direction a little bit. Like he said things like, you don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer or marry one. Just that line, like made me think, I'm just doing what everybody else does. In the 80s, we're all going to school. We're going there to make money and work in some business somewhere. It's not everybody's path. And the rabbi was saying, try something else. If you don't like it, leave. Go to yeshiva, find out about Judaism. If you don't like it, go back. Things like that. It kind of planted a seed in me. And of course, he always talked about, and other times I heard him speak afterwards, about the potential for tremendous anti-Semitism in America. And even though America is a great country, and it always has been, that which isn't always that which it will be, and therefore be careful. And I started to pay attention to anti-Semitism in America after that, from my nice Gentile friends, but when they got a little drunk, they'd say certain things. And all that together, eventually I read the books, and 2 years later I was in Israel, made aliyah.
Amazing. Great. So continue. You came to Israel because of him, and you changed your life. You probably started learning. When did you start learning? In New York?
Well,
in Israel?
because he said, the thing is, right before I made aliyah, I went to him, and there was a house party. And I said to him, listen, I'm going to make aliyah, and it's your fault. No, it's because of you. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do in Israel? And I thought maybe give me a connection to some ad agency, because I had been working for J. Walter Thompson, this big agency in Manhattan. And he said to me, steep yourself in Torah. So I didn't understand what that meant, because, to sit and learn Torah. But I understood that, I kind of had a feeling that if I just go to Israel and work for some ad agency in Tel Aviv, then what's the point? I could do it in Manhattan. It's like Tel Aviv's like a carbon copy of Manhattan. Like, it's not a change enough for me. So I decided to do that. I kind of started to learn Torah, became a Baal Tshuva. It was very easy in Israel to do that because, everybody, it's easy to keep kosher. Every place is kosher anyway here in Jerusalem. And, you put on a kippah on your head. It's not embarrassing or anything. It's very easy just to transition into being a Baal Tshuva.
Right. You're right. And you went to a yeshiva here? You found something? You found a place?
Oh, yeah. Well, I went to Mechon Meir when I started out, because it was one of those Baal Tshuva yeshivas which connects Eretz Yisrael to the Torah a lot more. Where I was coming from that angle. Rabbi Kahane was a very Zionist rabbi from the point of view of Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel, Jews got to live in the land. And unfortunately, a lot of Baal Tshuva yeshivas, and they're good ones, like Eish Torah or Samech, they're excellent rabbis, but they don't stress that. They don't stress the connection of the Jew to live in the land as much. And I think it would have confused me if I went to a place that didn't do that, because maybe I'd become religious, but maybe I'd go back to Brooklyn or something like that.
Okay. So you went to yeshiva. You're probably the oldest one there, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, so I started learning in Mechon Meir for 2 years. I started to understand the Torah is the truth. Once you start to learn and you see it's the truth, you're obligated to do what it says. And eventually, in 2 years after that, the Rabbi Kahane started his own yeshiva. So I joined that yeshiva. I got married in 87. I made aliyah in 85. I got married in 1987. And I lived a couple of different places. I ended up in Tapuach, which I always left. It's called the Apple. So I came from the Big Apple. Now I live in the Holy Apple in Tapuach Village.
Right. So good. So what did you do all those years? I mean, take us through it, because there are people listening today.
Oh,
who
you mean when I first came?
I mean, no. Tell me the story. I mean, you got married. You didn't just then have 8 kids and live in Tapuach with your own.
Because I saw it was very important to keep. I think for the family, the more you learn Torah, you have more to give over to your kids. So I wanted to fill up with a lot more Torah. But we lived in by a little, not as cheaply as we could. My wife worked a little bit. I worked a little on the side, and I learned Torah. And 2 years, actually, I stayed longer than I ever would have. Because it was Rabbi Kahane's yeshiva, I felt that was one of his learning. I felt I was helping him. So I really wanted to help his whole movement, because I really felt that not only was a great outreach rabbi in Kiruv, but he was doing stuff here in Israel that was going to save the Jewish people, in my opinion. He was coming out and saying, this is what you got to do. We got to do what the Torah says about the Arab situation. About every situation, he had the Torah, he applied Torah to it. And I felt that this was the authentic Torah, what I was learning. So I had a motivation to continue learning as long as I could in his yeshiva to strengthen the movement. But eventually, I have to make a parnasa. And so my wife's a Yemenite. She's very good at business. And I'm not good at business, especially with Israelis. But we opened the business of inflatables in about 1996. And we're still doing it. We got kids on bouncy houses, and it's a real business. It's very seasonal. Yeah. We go around during
we use it here.
Purim time. It should be about now. We should work it because of Corona. Nobody does any inflatables for a while now, but that's what we've been doing.
Amazing. That's good. It's very good. Very lucrative. If any of you listening, inflatables are like those jamboree, jumping.
Yeah, big jamboree, bouncy houses, moonwalks, what they call them. Yeah. So it's the whole thing. It's a whole business. Not just in the summer, but also in Purim time. It's big. In the schools, they have shuk Purim. A lot of them.
Sure.
So we've been at it for a long time. So we got a lot of inflatables.
People know you. That's right. Israel, and I may have said this in the past, Israel is for children, and all these holidays and any excuse to have a party and a big event, they call them happening, right? They call them happenings.
That's right, a happening.
That's right. They call you, you come. Sometimes you have a popcorn machine, also cotton candy.
That's right.
Oh, right, the whole deal.
At the yeshiva, our kids learn. I brought them a cotton candy machine and a popcorn machine.
Sure. Sure.
Makes things happy.
It's great. It's so great to be a kid here. It's amazing.
Yeah.
This is the place to be a kid.
I go back sometimes to the States, and I can't understand how people, who a lot of them know they should make
out of time, but stay with us. Stay with us. We're going to come back. I want to hear you on the second segment. Stay with us. All of you, please listen and stay around. We'll be right back.
All right.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Siminto from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Siminto, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. We're continuing our talk here on Returning Home with Lenny Goldberg, who is just about to tell us something. Lenny, what were you going to tell us about you go back to this?
I see what's going on in America, and I think everybody sees there's a problem with anti-Semitism. It's growing. I mean, when I left in the mid-'80s, it was the tip of the iceberg, but now it's clear to so many people what's going on over there. And I think that a lot of people, they think, well, I can't make aliyah, it's hard, but they know they should. But I don't understand the excuses because it's just a one-generation move. I know for you it may be hard, but think of your kids, why set down roots? Why set down roots in a place that doesn't really have much of a future? And no exile ever did have a future. America's no different than any other exile. It's a comfortable exile, but everyone, in the end, self-destructed. So why should America be different? And so if you know that, and I think people instinctively do know that, what are you setting down roots? So make the move. It's a little hard for you, but your kids will grow up like my kids grow up. There's Israelis already. They don't have to deal with all the things I dealt with at the beginning. So it's a matter of a little bit of sacrifice. But in the end, and this is Rabbi Kahane, I saw it, the way he made us make aliyah, he really didn't stress the good things about Eretz Israel because he knows that won't make us move. He kind of talked a lot about how it won't be livable in America at one point because he knew that was the only thing that works. Like, I see a lot of French in Israel today, lots of French. And I never heard so much French on the buses because there's anti-Semitism in France. So that's what makes the Jews move. And this is like, by the way, this is the sages talk about it. It says that when Noah sent out the Yonah, the dove, from the ark, the only time the dove came back when there was no branch to rest on. So they say that's like the land of Israel is like the ark. And the only time you come back to the ark is there's no branch to rest on. But if there's a branch, he won't come to the ark. So the branch now, you have your kosher pizza, you have your falafel, you have your life there. But because of that, so you're staying out there. But the only time you come back to the teva, to the ark, is when things are unbearable. And that seems to be the rule of ironclad rule that the Jews will only come when it's just bad enough. And it's a pity because who knows? You'll always have the chance to make aliyah. Maybe they'll close the gates like they do during Corona. Maybe El Al will stop flying at some point. You never know what can happen. So, I just can't understand it. I came early. I came when I was single because I knew the more I stayed, it would be harder to move. You get a better job, you get a wife, and she might not want to make aliyah, but you got to do it. If you got kids, do it for them, and they'll adapt quickly. I mean, they'll go to school, they'll know Hebrew, and just make that one generation swing, and you'll save your generations if you do that.
That's right. I'm listening to you, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting to hear this. It's because it's so clear to me also, and I don't understand it. I don't. And my husband would explain to me when I said to him, why are we the only ones moving? Why aren't all the and we also were Baal Tshuva. We're newly religious. We lived in a religious neighborhood, and we were the only ones moving. I thought it was so strange. And he said, people say it. They say we want to move, but they don't mean it, Natalie. They don't mean it. They think it's the right thing to say.
Right, and especially there used to be a point that, no, it can't happen here. It can't happen here. So then they say, okay, because that you don't make aliyah. But I think people realize it can now. They do see the anti-Semitism, and that's why it makes it so baffling that you see it and you know it, but because of your job and the language and all kinds of bureaucracies, which is all true, that's what's stopping you. Just, don't set down roots. Think of your kids at least.
Yeah, it's frightening, and it's easier to look away. I think it's just easier to not see what's going on.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your community, about Tepuach. I love it.
Well, Tepuach was one of those settlements after the '67 war. We know that there was a lot of settlements to kind of maintain those lands that we liberated in '67. So one of them was in Tepuach. I think it was built about '73, and it's different than the other settlements. It's from Yemenite Jews. Yemenite Jews from this small moshav called Bareket. They came and settled there, and it kind of stayed stagnant for a long time. Not too many families came, and then we came as Rabbi Kahane's followers in 1990. We came there, and as a little a push, that was another couple of families, and then little by little it grew. And then Ariel University, right next to us, was built, and that kind of gave a big push in the area. All these students came to us, and now we're huge. We're like seriously like for the Shomron. We always had a good location. It's right in Somet Tepuach Junction, and it's right on the where all these settlements are near Shechem, but it's a little closer to Jerusalem. So it's one of those places that's really growing right now. And people move out here now, not because of idealism anymore. It used to be idealistic. You move in a settlement. But today people do it because it's just nice.
Yeah, I know. Clean air. You can, run around outside. You don't have to keep a close eye on your children. You don't have to lock your car. Nothing. I know.
That's right. I keep my keys in my car for the last 20 years. And there was people who say, but you're in the settlements. Yeah, in the settlements, you're much safer, a certain way. Your kids go out, like you say, it's true. And I see that people moving out into this. I see the new people coming in over the last 5 years, and young couples, and they have nothing to do with settling the land of Israel. They're coming for quality of life. We know housing in Israel is very, very expensive, so it's a little cheaper in the Shomron, a little bit. It would be much better if they let us build a little bit more. But it's definitely clean air. You have a yard. And, it's not like it used to be. It's a caravan on a hilltop. The settlements today are it's
proper suburbs.
High quality of life here.
Sure. I know. I live in Susia. I know. I've been to your neighborhood. It's great. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And, I know you do a podcast. You were telling me a little bit about it. Why don't you tell me a little more?
One of the things that Rabbi Kahane started yeshiva is because he felt that the Bible, the Tanakh, was very neglected in yeshivas. Even yeshiva kids, they learn Talmud and Gemara for 10 hours, and they neglected Tanakh, which is basically the foundation of our faith. Tanakh, the Bible, it's like the Goyim, the Jews read it, and the Goyim read it. So the Jews should be reading the Bible, and that will also give us the connection to the land, because the whole thing of the Tanakh is Jews in Eretz Yisrael before exile. So all that together has made a distortion where you can be religious and not live in Israel, or not think you have to fight for Israel. So if you learn Tanakh, you get a healthy hashkafa, a healthy mindset. So I took upon myself, because I think there's not any Jewish Tanakh courses enough. It's mostly Christian, to just have a podcast and Bible classes from whole Tanakh. I have the Book of Kings done. So if anyone wants to tune in, it's Bible classes, Lenny Goldberg. You can get it's an anchor podcast, the Bible classes, Lenny Goldberg. You just have a nice, simple understanding of this Tanakh. It's a great book.
Well, you are right about that. What you just said. If you do look at Bible classes, they are all done by the Christians. You're right.
Well, I didn't get that.
I said you're correct. What you said, that the Bible classes are all given by the Christians.
Right. It's a terrible thing. I mean, Isaiah and Yirmiyahu. You think you think of yeshiva brachas would know more about it, and we're missing that, and that's really also because of the exile. We weren't living in our land, so the Bible became a lot less relevant for us. So we concentrated on the private mitzvahs, the halacha, the arba amot of halacha, as they say, the bathroom, the bedroom, the kitchen, and we didn't have a land, so maybe that was appropriate when you're in the exile in Poland. But now that we're back in the land of Israel, the Bible becomes so relevant. It's all about wars for Israel and kings and leaders and what's a classic Jew supposed to be like? The Sauls, the Davids, the Yonathans, the Yoav ben Shruya, all these figures in the Tanakh are very inspiring if you learn about them. And unfortunately, usually the Jewish world, they learn about in Cheder, when they're in first, second, third, fourth grade, they learn Bible. And then after that, that's like for little kids. And then they go on and to learn the other books like Mishnah and Gemara. But the fact is, the Bible is deep lessons. The story of David and Goliath, it's not just for little kids. There's deep, profound lessons in that story that are so relevant for today. So we're trying to get back to the basics. Tanakh is basic. It's the foundation of Judaism. It says in Perkei 5 years Tanakh, essence of the Mishnah. There's a limud. There's an order of learning properly, and we kind of lost that. So we got to get back to that. And if a Jew just read Tanakh, simple understanding of it, it would be inspiring for him and change it, even for religious Jews.
Well, that's for sure for religious Jews. There are religious Jews that are in America, and they grow up, learning about Israel and saying prayers 3 times a day. Why are they still there?
So,
Lenny?
the Jews outside of Israel?
Why are they still there? The religious Jews.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Lenny?
No, I didn't get that.
I said, you're talking about the Jews, how they need to learn Bible, how they need to learn Tanakh, okay? And I'm saying, yes, and the religious Jews are outside of Israel learning all this other stuff. And I'm just saying it again. The religious Jews who are learning all about Israel, you just said it, though. They're not learning about Israel. Maybe that's one of the problems.
Yes, I think so. But the thing is that they don't learn in Israel either Tanakh. That's what's sad, unfortunately. The yeshivas also here, they don't stress it enough. Maybe they're starting to a little bit more. But there's no question, if you don't have Tanakh, you're going to be severed from this basic Jewish concepts like living in Israel, fighting for Israel.
They're here, so they don't care. I mean, that's look, there are a lot of problems about Israel. We can go on about that on another show. And that's a problem in Israel, but that's a huge problem in Jewish education. They're not learning about Tanakh. They're not learning about Israel, and you're right. I mean, I used to go to people's houses, and they had all this beautiful art on the walls, and I would tell them where I lived, and they didn't know what I was talking about. So I said, Hebron, I'm near Hebron, and they would have these beautiful art. And I was like, show you, where's your map? And they nobody had a map. I was like, you guys are religious Jews. Don't you have a map of Israel? The hell? I thought it was so strange. They didn't know anything about the land.
Right. And, there's 3 components to being a Jew. It's land, Torah, and language, and, of course, the nation. But we're not like a nation that has to live in Israel like the Muslims go to Mecca to visit. Part of being a Jew is living in Israel. We got the Torah. It says, okay, you got the Torah, now you got to go to Israel. It comes together.
Yeah.
And that's,
you're right.
I just think it's kind of inertia. You're born there, you get used to it, and then you find excuses why not to go.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Lenny, for joining us. We're out of time. I will put your information on our summary for the show, and you can share it with your friends. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Chag Sameach. Purim Sameach.
Okay. Cool. Bye-bye.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
And me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. Joining us for our last segment is my friend David Brenner, who is the founder of PartnersInAliyah, a website, a aliyah support group that I've been involved with for since the beginning with David and a few others. It's amazing. There are chats going on here. There's a website, a lot of talk. David, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back again. Good to be here.
Good. All right. It's a difficult time for aliyah. People are not having the things are not working out. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you hear on all the different chats.
So obviously, the big elephant in the room is the virus. And listen, thank God that you and I are lucky enough to live in a country that has been able to take what I would call a very Jewish approach to this crisis, whatever you want to call it. And our goal here has been to save lives. Thank God. Now that has consequences. And right now, those consequences are heavily affecting people trying to make aliyah. And they're also affecting olim who are already here, who did make aliyah, as well as their extended families that may be still back in the galut. And what we're seeing right now is two parallel tracks. One is that all of you out there who are signed up for aliyah, you have your approval, you have your visas, your bags are packed, maybe your lift is on the way, maybe you had a flight, and people have no idea whether their flight's going to fly. They have no idea. And the same effect is happening to Israelis who have been stranded in the galut for whatever reason. For example, I have a friend who, and many of you out there may be looking at this possibility of coming and making aliyah and then keeping your job back in America or wherever you came and maybe having to fly back and forth, which is doable, and people have done it for many years. That option right now is not a good option. I have a friend who did that, and actually he is not a regular traveler, but he happened to go there at the end of January, and he only made it back in 2 days ago. He was supposed to come back February 10th, I think, and his flight got canceled, and people weren't allowed to board.
Let's just lay it out. What's going on here is El Al and other airlines as well are not flying because why? The airport's closed.
Correct. The airport's closed, and on top of that, even these rescue flights that are out there, that's what they're calling them. It's very appropriate, actually, for this time when we're coming into Purim. we are rescuing Jews from the galut on special flights. But to get on one of those,
because I don't think they're doing it.
One of the things is if you want to get on one of those rescue flights, you need an ishur, you need permission from the Israeli government to come in, and that little piece of paper is really hard to get on. It's really hard to get. And as a matter of fact, Natalie, I have a personal situation because you know that my father died actually a year ago, and I've been living in the Israeli Corona world the whole time. Both first trying to get his body to Israel because he was flown over here. Also tried to get my mother to come to Israel for the funeral, and that was denied back in March. And so this whole time, we still haven't been able to get my mother here to visit the gravesite. And now we're trying again to get my mother to come here, and I put in an application, but she doesn't neatly fall under any of the rules that say people can come in. Listen, the bottom line is, and we've been saying this over and over. You've been saying it. I've been saying it. First of all, if you're thinking about aliyah, don't put it off. And second of all, in general, if you're thinking about coming to Israel, it's not so simple. This is not so simple. The borders are closed. They're closed again. And, you want to be here. You don't want to be there.
That's right. And, I've never been saying that because I never thought that would happen. I never even thought in the realm of possibility people couldn't come. But it is true. I always said, you want to come? Come now. Don't wait. Come now. And the reason I said it is not because I thought they closed the border. It's because life is unpredictable. We don't know. You cannot plan. When you live in Israel, you learn that. And you've learned it, David, just like I've learned it. You really don't plan here. You live for the moment. You live for the day. Taseh Chaim. And I love that. I loved that about Israelis. They go out and they stay out till 4 a.m. because they feel good. They can. They take money out of the bank. They spend it. It's great. It's a great way to live. And there's no more appropriate time than now. When you see, yes, move, do your plan, do it now. Don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Don't wait because then once you start, it's like, it's like getting on the vaccines. It takes a month to get through the whole course of treatment. And it's like that with aliyah. You got to start now. And I also see, by the way, a lot of people whose expectations are being shattered because, they thought that they could make an aliyah and in a month they'll have their visa and they'll be ready to go. That's not the case. It's only gotten harder. and I'm sure you discuss it on your show with now the FBI background checks that need to be done.
I do not. I won't. It's too upsetting. And this is something I've not discussed on the show. It's just unbelievable, the red tape. It's like Russia here. What I see used to be, the process is just nothing like we went through. It is getting harder and harder.
But thank God we have MDN, and thank God we have now Partners in Aliyah. And frankly, it's not just Partners in Aliyah. It's a lot of other groups that are out there.
Yes.
And if people need help, Natalie, please go to PartnersInAliyah.org. We've got over 300 resources out there. We've got your show reposted on there. We've got job listings. They're coming out 50, 75 job listings a week.
Yes.
We've got WhatsApp.
Jobs are not be the problem, and they never should have been the problem, and for sure not today. There's work. You'll get work.
There's a lot of work. People don't realize, but that's the big fear of people is I'm not going to be able to work. And frankly, that's what Israel, in my perspective, is trying to do right now. Is the reason why the borders are very, very sealed is because Israel is very, very concerned about the vaccine taking effect and not having potential other strains come in that are going to upset the apple cart over here, and so that business can return to usual. Because we haven't taken the approach that a lot of other people, a lot of these other places in the world taken was, well, we'll let it go out there, we'll let the virus go out there, and we'll let it wind its course. We haven't done that. And so the one thing, I don't know if you feel it, but I see one thing we see over here, Natalie, is people have some people, a lot of people, we've banded together. We're seeing a higher purpose. This is our country. This is our little place. It's a little Jewish nation, little tiny country. The one country that got picked to get the vaccine was this tiny little Jewish country. And we're banding together, and I think people are starting to realize more and more that it takes a little bit of sacrifice and a little bit of looking out for the person next to you. And that is what's so refreshing about being here, is that when you look at that person next to you, it's not a foreigner. It doesn't matter if you didn't meet them before, right, Natalie? It's not a foreigner. They're Jewish. They're a family. They're one of us. We're in this together, and that is the big overarching thing about living in this place.
That's true. That is Israel. It is one big family. And I'm going to say that it is hard now with Corona, and some people want to take the vaccine, some people don't want to take the vaccine, and that's a little bit of a fight here. But it's Israel, and I'd rather have that fight here than have it anywhere else. And
Absolutely.
The world is changing for everybody. It's changing everywhere, and I'd rather be here. And I think all of you listening should be here. You want to be here, where the world is crazy. It's never going to be as crazy here. Okay, this is, like you said, it's our little place. It's our little crazy. We can handle our own little crazy.
No, we can handle our own little crazy. And the other thing I leave everyone with is we're coming up on Purim Sameach. And listen, one of the things about the Purim story is the Purim story is a story about Galut and about what can happen there and the bad things that can happen. And that, you can be comfortable in Galut today, but the Purim story tells us that tomorrow there can be an edict that comes down. And those edicts that come down are not so easy. They are not so easy to rescind. When the Goyim get an idea in their mind and they don't want the Jews anymore, things can happen very swiftly.
Very quickly, that's
so
right.
Let's just not sit around and wait, everybody. It's not listen, this isn't between trying to scare anybody. This isn't scary. You just need to walk out and look out your window and you can see. You can see what's going on. And that's why Chazal made Purim a festival. We made Purim a festival because we know that the reality is, even though this happened thousands of years ago, it could happen today, and it does. So, and
it's not just a story.
It's not, obviously it's not just a story. And a lot of us are finishing up our fast of Esther, which is what the fast of Esther is recounting is that day when all the Jews were huddled up and ready to go to war because they were granted permission by the king to protect themselves against the edict that he could not revoke, and everyone had to go to war. The only person who wasn't going to war was Esther, because she was with the king. So she fasted. No one else was allowed to fast because they had to prepare for war. That's what today's about. That's what the fast is about. And right now, I feel like, all of us are kind of in a war against this virus thing, and we all got to band together, and we got to put our best foot forward, and we got to figure out how to move forward. And the best way as Jewish people we can move forward from our perspective, is to do it here. It's a lot harder.
Yeah, be here.
It's a lot harder when we need to collect all you from the Galut and send rescue flights and have special ishurs and special permissions and special whatever. And my mother had to have some protection in America just to get a vaccine, and I know that it's happening to a lot of people. That it's very hard to get one.
David, we're out of time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining
us.
Good
to be with you.
Thank you, and Chag Sameach. Purim Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.